So this has to be one of the most obscure illegal connections that I've ever discovered. One of the earliest that I've ever discovered too. It kind of holds a special place in my heart for that reason. But it's obscure in the sense that it only requires two pieces to make, but they're two pieces that by no means were designed to go together. And yet they fit in such a satisfying way. Now, I have not utilized this in any particularly exciting builds yet, mostly because of these two pieces. One of them I only own one copy of, and it's a bit more of an obscure piece than the other. The first piece here that I think you may be familiar with if you're interested at all with earlier Technic in the mid to even early 2000s is this right here, this large pulley. Now this is an interesting piece on its own, most notably because of the spacing of the connections on it. 4 modules apart with a axle hole in the middle. I'm not really aware of anything else as a singular piece that has any connection quite like this. So that's fascinating enough on its own. But the more interesting piece here has to be this. So this is the outer rim for a basketball hoop assembly that came out in the early 2000s. It came out in this old dark gray color here as well as orange, and it's a fairly interesting piece on its own right. I feel like if Lego had discovered this illegal connection, they would have changed the material of this because I do believe that this is polypropylene, hence the axle being built into the back end here. But what makes it satisfying to me is the fact that the inside diameter of that very ring and the outside diameter of this ring right here are the same. To such a degree that when you clip the two together, there's just such a satisfying clip sound. And so I've actually utilized this in a specific build as sort of a test, if nothing else. This right here. You can see it being used on the inside of this, what I'm just going to call a hip, for lack of a better term. And although you can see that we have a leg on here that's connected to a couple of ball joints to give one axis of rotation, that's not the rotation that's important here, because what we're actually focused on is that ring, which actually supplies greater friction than a singular ball joint, which I'm shocked by. And it makes me think that, like, why wasn't this ever used by Lego? Because something like this, something that could just clip onto even other rings, other diameters of rings, seems like a really effective way to introduce a different type of hinge, something that can be pulled apart relatively easily, put together and be held together securely that still fits the inner dimensions of what Lego otherwise produces, which this does. And so I'm shocked that this is not a concept that we've seen before or since, or even here really, because it's definitely not intentional. That said, this build in this case here also has a third axis of rotation at the actual hip here, so you actually do get the ability to sort of move legs around. And I've wanted to make a large Rocky from this. I've just never had the opportunity to do so, again, because, yeah, it turns out I only own one of these. So I'm going to take the leg off here for a moment. I'd like to take these connectors off here too, but they're pretty solidly held in place here. Oh, I see why. I'm using some bootleg pieces in there that have a tighter grip than Legos normally do. These black axle pins here. But anyway, the point of this still stands. It's a really fascinating connection that rotates around the axle here because it's centered properly, right? So that's always good. It's always nice when your center of rotation aligns with the grid that you're building on. But on top of that, I think the main downside of a build like this is the fact that it only has the one connection. A singular axle built into the back of a polypropylene material, which could potentially be prone to snapping if used incorrectly in a way like this. And so it does mean that you could potentially damage this trying to use it with these intentions. Not because of the connection itself. The connection is not going to damage it. But if you wanted to utilize that connection in the way that I have here, you have to be kind of smart about it. You have to be kind of diligent and aware of what pieces are going to what. In this case here, the axle that is connected to the socket here is also run through an entire assembly designed to support it, so it doesn't put any stress on that axle at the bottom here. But that's obviously not something you can do in every scenario, and it requires some honestly unnecessary bulking up of a mechanism like this. So again, I find this as a really fascinating illegal connection, and it's one of my personal favorites that I've ever found. It's not one that I use that often. In fact, this is the only time I have done so. And in part, that was because for a long time, I only owned one of these as well, but recently came across a handful more. However, I'm still at some point going to seek out a full set of 4 of these hoop rings to go with them. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and if you do have this piece in your collection, I would absolutely encourage you just to kind of play around with it, because it is a fun, interesting piece. And I think it's honestly one of those pieces that was underutilized, but again, this connection to not having something like this in LEGO's current modern build portfolio, I guess, is shocking, because it seems like such a simple premise, such a simple idea, and it holds up really well. But we haven't seen it yet. Maybe we never will. With all that said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, because it does help this channel out, and it gets us that much closer to 3,000 and I guess 100 subscribers. Yesterday's video, which I knew was going to be controversial, definitely hurt in the subscriber count. That's okay. That wasn't the point of making the video, but rather, this video is here for you guys to enjoy, and I know you guys quite eat up these types of videos, these illegal connection videos. I love making them. So with all that said, of course, you can also check out the Discord, Instagram, and Patreon, all of which are linked down in the description below and help to support the channel. As well, you can also let me know in the comments your thoughts on this connection. Have you ever seen it used before? Am I missing something? Did LEGO use this and I just didn't see it? And have you found any of your own illegal connections? Maybe some you'd like me to even cover. With all that said, I hope you have a great day and take care.